What's up, guys? Welcome to the second edition of Franchise Tagged. My name is Will Ford. Thank you for joining me. I'm excited. Got a lot to talk about this week. But first, I'm going to start with an error that I made last week. When we were talking about March Madness, we were talking about Cincinnati and how I thought they would be a Sweet 16 team, but I was dead wrong about that. But anyways, I said they got beat by Yale during March Madness a year ago, and they actually weren't. They were beaten by St. Joseph's in the first round last year. Yale actually beat Baylor. They upset Baylor in the first round last year, so I want to apologize for that. If I make mistakes, just leave comments down below. Let me know, and I'll address those in the next podcast or maybe in the comments. But let's get started with today's show. So let's move on to the NFL. News in the NFL. Not really any big free agent news lately. But Tom Brady's Super Bowl jersey that was stolen after Super Bowl 51 this year has been found. A Mexican reporter went into the locker room after the game and stole it from Tom Brady's locker. He also stole the one from Tom Brady's last Super Bowl against the Seahawks. So both of them were in his house, and they found both, and they are now being returned to Tom Brady. They also found a helmet that they think was worn by Von Miller in last year's Super Bowl. So it's interesting, that this guy would just want to, steal players' things, but they have been found and they have been returned, so that's great news. A good free agent signing by the Minnesota Vikings. They signed running back Latavius Murray, who I love, to a 3-year, $15 million deal. The last 2 years on his deal are option years, so he can actually opt out after his first year. But he did have ankle surgery 6 days after the Vikings signed him, and the Vikings knew he needed surgery before they signed him. He's still a great pickup. I'm not concerned about his injury at all. He's had a great last couple years in Oakland. Too bad Oakland couldn't keep them because he's great for their offense, and he's good. He provides a good balance for Derek Carr, working with Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree, and that running game really opens things up for him. But signing Latavius Murray does save the Vikings $18 million in cap space. So that's great for them that they can sign Latavius Murray to a cheaper deal, and they get a guy that's younger, more explosive, and it's just much better for their offense. They're moving in the right direction now with their offense. Now they just need to get a quarterback. With Teddy Bridgewater been hurt, he's tore up his knee in about every place possible, and Sam Bradford is just not the guy. Sam Bradford is just a Heisman winner, but just didn't turn out to be what everyone thought he would be. But Latavius Murray's a great player, and he's a great fantasy pickup too in fantasy football. I love him. Provides great balance now for what little offense the Vikings had. Let's move on now to Tony Romo. I know we talked about him last week, but he still has not been released by the Dallas Cowboys. I don't really know why. No news has really been reported on Tony Romo. To me, the best scenario for him is still go to Houston or Denver. Those are the other options. But I did hear a report that the Carolina Panthers could possibly land Tony Romo. It's kind of confusing to me. They have Cam Newton, who's is a superstar talent, led him to the Super Bowl a couple years ago until this season, which was a complete disaster. But I do see why Tony Romo could fit in with Carolina. Number one, Cam Newton has probably peaked. We have more than likely seen the best of Cam Newton. That was a one-hit wonder season, I think. He's still going to be a great quarterback in this league, going to put up great numbers, give great production, probably lead the Panthers to the playoffs for years to come, but Tony Romo will provide that leadership and that maturity and that veteran presence, and can bring more to the table leadership-wise than Cam Newton ever will. And Tony Romo is still very productive and can still win a lot of games for that team with those weapons that Cam Newton has. They did lose Ted Ginn to the New Orleans Saints, but they still have Greg Olsen. If they can draft Leonard Fournette, they can have a great running game. Or a guy like Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey. I love all those guys. Not huge on Leonard Fournette, but I like him. If they can get him in the first round, that would be great. That will open things up for Tony Romo, and the Panthers wouldn't have to rely on him so much. TV is still a possibility for Tony Romo. I think Fox would be just a great fit because you have Troy Aikman there. You can work with Troy Aikman. You can work with Kevin Burkhardt or Joe Buck or just whoever's available to work with. But yeah, Tony Romo is just, to me, I just don't understand why the Cowboys haven't done this yet. I mean, there's no hurt not releasing him. I mean, as long as Tony Romo's okay with not being released yet. But it's still puzzling for them to say they're going to release him, then trade him, and then release him, and then, and there's no quarterback market out there. The quarterback market right now is Jay Cutler and Colin Kaepernick, and those two are not viable options for a team. Those are quick fixes until you find a franchise guy. But Tony Romo can still be the guy for 2, 3, maybe 4. That's pushing it with his injury history, 4 years maybe. But Tony Romo can still be a franchise guy for a team with a very minimal quarterback market. A notable draft update: Sidney Jones, the cornerback prospect out of Washington, he tore his Achilles in the combine or pro day, and he just had surgery on it, and he's expected to return for the start of the season for whichever team he drafts him. I thought he was a first-round talent, possibly the best corner in the draft, maybe behind Marshawn Lattimore out of Ohio State. But now I don't even know if a team will take him in the first round or even the second round, just, with that torn Achilles. But for him to be ready by the beginning of the season, that's a short recovery time for a torn Achilles. Torn Achilles usually takes around 8-9 months for you to be fully healthy. And right now it's March. Preseason starts in August, and the season starts in September. So for him to come back by September, that's about 6 months. I don't know if he's going to be ready by then. He might be ready mid-season, December. But yeah, that's unfortunate for him because he was a great prospect. He was probably going to be in the top 15, maybe. Definitely first round for sure. He's definitely a first-round talent. I really like him. I like Marshawn Lattimore a little better, but he can be a tremendous player as long as he keeps that Achilles injury from hampering him. And Manti Te'o, former linebacker from the San Diego Chargers, now the Los Angeles Chargers. It's weird to say that. But he has signed a 2-year deal with the Saints. Unfortunate for the Chargers because Manti Te'o is a good player. I would have signed him I would have paid more money to keep him. I think he's a great player, aside from his little, fake girlfriend incident, prior to him being drafted. But that's besides the point. He's a good player. I would have liked to have seen the Chargers keep him. But that's a good pickup by the Saints. That really helps their defense out because their defense was really one of the worst defenses in the league last year. So that's a good pickup for them. And then Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, might be coming back. Or maybe not. We don't know. The media kind of took this and ran with it, when it was first even hinted at. But I heard that the Oakland Raiders were interested. Now that they've lost Latavius Murray, they should definitely be interested in beast mode. I've heard that beast mode wants to come back. Well, as maybe not once, but he's missing football a little bit. Would maybe like to come back, and Oakland would be a tremendous fit because they have probably got arguably the second best offensive line in football. They've got a great franchise guy in Derek Carr. They've got tremendous weapons on the outside, Crabtree. They've got Amari Cooper. They have a defense that's on the up and up. And adding Marshawn Lynch to that offense, that team is just going to be set up for deep playoff runs. Even though Marshawn Lynch hasn't played in a while, getting up there in age a little bit, he can still do some things. So that would be great for them and great for Marshawn Lynch. The only problem, though, for Oakland is that Marshawn Lynch is still technically owned by Seattle. Since he retired under contract with them, Seattle still owns the right to Marshawn Lynch. They have the right to, sign him to a new contract if he were to come out of retirement. So the Seahawks would have to give him up. I think they would, because now they have Eddie Lacy, they have Thomas Rawls, they have CJ Prosise, so I think they would happily give up Marshawn Lynch, and that would mean he's on the open market, and he can go anywhere he pleases, and I think Oakland would be the best fit for him. Adrian Peterson could still even go there too, but I think Marshawn Lynch would be the best fit in Oakland, and vice versa. It works both ways. But that's all I've got for NFL news. Nothing really major going on right now. So let's just move on to Mr. LaVar Ball. He has been just talking so much lately. It's really ridiculous, and this is probably the worst of them all. I didn't have a problem with what he was talking about last time with the $1 billion and him beating Michael Jordan. That's just kind of having fun, even though he said he was serious. That's fun stuff, but this is just crossing the line, I think. LaVar Ball said that LeBron James's sons, LeBron Jr. and Bryce Maximus, wouldn't live up to be as good as their dad. And he said that LaVar said that his sons are set up better for success than LeBron's are. This is way out of line for LaVar to talk about LeBron James's kids like that. It's horrible. And he said things like, there's tremendous pressure on these kids, which I agree, there is tremendous pressure on the James kids just because it's LeBron James, and people are going to think that you have to play just as well as your dad. You have to be better than your dad, and you can't really be yourself. You can't really be your own player. And so I can see it from that point of view, but it's still out of line just to talk bad about someone's kids like that. And I'm not a father, and I even know that's horrible. That's a horrible thing to say about someone else's kids. LeBron did fire back at LaVar, and so he should have. He said to keep his family out of his mouth and not to talk about his family. And I agree. LaVar should not be talking about LeBron James's family like that. That's way over the line for him to say. LeBron said also that he can talk about his brand, he can talk about his own sons, he can talk about basketball, he can talk about him, but he wants him to keep his family out of the whole thing. And LaVar should not be talking about someone else's family like that, especially LeBron James. You don't call out LeBron James like that. You don't call out his family. It's horrible. You don't call out anyone like that. It's just not a very good situation right there. And LaVar did then refire back at LeBron, and he refused to apologize for what he said, and he reestablished that no superstars' kids have ever grown to be as good or better than their parents. And I agree, no one has. That doesn't mean LeBron's kids can't or won't. But still, it's still out of line for him to say something like that. It's just horrible. And really, LaVar just needs to stop. At this point, it's just out of hand. I don't really know what else to say about this. And LaVar's sons are outstanding players. They're going to be outstanding in the league, but for him to say that they're set up better than LeBron's kids, it's horrible. All right, well, enough with LaVar Ball. I've had enough with LaVar Ball. So let's move on to something that's kind of related to LaVar. we're going to move on to NBA news now. I didn't really talk about NBA news last week, so we'll touch on it this week. And by the way, just want to get this out there right now. I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not big into hockey. But if you want me to talk about baseball and hockey, let me know in the comments. I'll gladly look things up and I'll educate myself the best I can and talk about it and give you my thoughts on things. But I'm not going to talk about baseball or hockey very much on this show. I'm just not really into that much. But hey, even MMA or boxing or UFC, if you want me to talk about that, tell me in the comments. I'll try my best, I can always learn, right? So just let me know. But anyways, on to the NBA news. Joel Embiid, the superstar, I think he's a superstar center for the Philadelphia 76ers, is going to have another knee surgery. He missed the second half of the season with a swollen knee, and I believe it was a torn meniscus that he had, and now he has to have another knee surgery. And that's just really unfortunate, just because he is a superstar talent, and it's taken so long for him to even play in this league. He had to sit out the first couple seasons in the league. This season was his rookie season, like an official rookie. So it's just sad to see him have to have another surgery and possibly have to sit out another season or so. I don't think he's ever going to be completely healthy, but when he is healthy, he's an absolute stud. He's an incredible player, and he should have been an all-star this year. Maybe not starting, but definitely should have been on the team. I thought he had a tremendous year up until he got hurt, and he really actually made the 76ers competitive. They were actually winning games. So Joel Embiid really made a difference for that team. It's just sad to see that Embiid just can't keep his knees healthy, but I guess the 76ers are just going to have to deal with that, And they still have Ben Simmons that needs to, get his foot right. I mean, he broke his foot before the season started and never even played. So yeah, it's not looking good for the 76ers. Like, they've made all these great picks, and it's just not turning out the way that they thought. And if I'm a 76ers fan, I'm happy that I've got these guys, but I'm not happy that they're not playing. Like, they need to get healthy. They need to. This city deserves a great team, and really, this could be a great team if all these guys could stay healthy. But moving along, we're going to move on to the MVP race. It's been a lot of discussion. Russell Westbrook has been outstanding this year. He's had over 30 triple-doubles, probably pretty close to 40. He's had the best statistical season by far since Oscar Robertson when he was doing his triple-double magic. But to me, Russell Westbrook is not the MVP by the end of the year. Even if he finishes averaging a triple-double, I don't think he's the MVP this year. Number one is because his team is not winning games. Yes, he doesn't have all this help. He doesn't have enough help and what have you. But if you're not, no MVP has ever won the MVP. No player has ever won the MVP winning less than 50 games, and right now they're on track to win less than 50 games. So to me, Russell Westbrook shouldn't be the MVP if you're not winning games for your team. Yes, the numbers are outstanding, but if they're not leading to victories, then you're not the most valuable player, you're the most outstanding player. You see what I'm saying here? MVP and MOP. MVP, most valuable. Yes, he's the most valuable on his team, but he's not winning games. They're not winning any games. He's the most outstanding player in the league, most electrifying player in the league. Plays the hardest, plays every play, never takes a play off. But he's the most outstanding player in the league. He's not the most valuable player in the league. Now, we can make the argument that the most valuable player in the league every season is LeBron James. Really, he should win the MVP every year, but they're not going to do that. We're not going to vote for LeBron James every year. LeBron is the greatest passer we've ever seen. A tremendous player efficiency rating. He makes everyone around him better. Makes the right basketball plays all the time. And can just absolutely take over a game, take over a playoff series. And he played phenomenal in the finals against the Warriors both years. He's a phenomenal player, and you can make the argument that he should win MVP every year, which really he should. But if you're not going to vote for LeBron, to me there's only two other candidates, maybe three. Kawhi Leonard from San Antonio, James Harden from Houston, and Isaiah Thomas from Boston. To me, out of those three, my MVP is James Harden. Because James Harden, like Russell Westbrook, has been outstanding. He's putting up triple-doubles, 40-point triple-doubles. And he's winning games for his team. They're third in the West right now, behind San Antonio and Golden State. James Harden has had a phenomenal year scoring the ball. He's been playing point guard this year, and he's really just made everyone around him better. He's kind of turning into that LeBron James kind of guy who makes everyone around him better. I'm not saying he is LeBron James. I'm not comparing him to LeBron James because they're two completely different players, but the way he plays elevates other guys' games, which is why they're winning games. And then Kawhi Leonard, I love Kawhi Leonard. He's kind of like that silent assassin, doesn't say much. You don't hear about him a lot. Excuse me. But he has played tremendously well this year. He is extremely efficient on offense and defense. He takes the clutch shots. He makes the clutch shots, which is one drawback of LeBron, is he doesn't take clutch shots. He usually defers to Kyrie, which is why you can make that case against LeBron for MVP. But anyways, back to Kawhi. He is the main source of offense. He's their best defender, probably the best defender in the league, best two-way player in the league. And really, you don't have a lot going against Kawhi Leonard here. Really, you can make the case that he should be MVP outright because they're second in the West behind the Warriors, and they're right on their heels, too. Kawhi has just played phenomenal. Takes the clutch shots, makes the clutch shots. Plays tremendous defense, extremely efficient, very mature for his young age. And even though they don't have LaMarcus Aldridge right now, I still like them to, make a deep playoff run. I don't know if they're going to get past the Warriors in the finals. We'll get to the Warriors later. I don't know if they're going to get past the Warriors to the finals, but I think for sure Western Conference if they can get LaMarcus Aldridge back. If not, Houston Rockets will play the Warriors. But he's had a phenomenal year. And then Isaiah Thomas, Mr. Mini 5'9", IT4, has had a phenomenal year stepping up for the C's. He's got the most 20-point games in Celtics history. He's averaging 29 points a game. He's getting boards for a little guy, and he is just absolutely clutch in the fourth quarter. He leads the league in fourth quarter scoring, and he's just the man in Boston. And they have a tremendous team, with Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder. Not necessarily big-name guys, but they all play well together, and they have a tremendous coach in Brad Stevens. But the case for IT4 is he's clutch in the fourth quarter, takes the clutch shots, makes them. He's an outstanding team player, and they're winning games. They're second in the East to the Cavs. I believe they're about 2.5 games back, and they're only 2.5 games above the Wizards. That's a close race between first and third in the East. But IT4 has had a tremendous year, but I don't think that's enough to get him the MVP. I think my MVP, and I think the MVP should be James Harden. So, yeah. So we're going to move on now to, the seeding, in the West and East. The Warriors since they've lost Kevin Durant, have not been playing very well. They're kind of getting back on track now. But before, when they first lost Kevin Durant, they were playing absolutely horrible. Steph Curry wasn't himself. He kind of had to re-find himself because really he was the second option on that team without Durant. So I don't know if the Warriors can hang on. I think they will hang on to the number one seed in the West because I think they're now finally starting to find their groove. I think they will hang on. The Spurs are catching up. The Rockets are right there. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I don't think those two are going to be enough to push the Warriors out of the first seed. I think that they'll hang on. They'll get Durant back before the playoffs start. They'll reintegrate him, and they'll get that chemistry back. And then I think they're on the way to the finals. Really, I think with Durant, they're an automatic lock. But we're going to talk more about Durant and the Warriors here in a second after I talk about the Cavs in the East and if they can hang on to their number one seed. And I can go back and forth on this. I can see Boston overtaking them, and then I can see the Cavs holding on. I think the Cavs will hang on, and then the Celtics will sit at the 2 seed. They just got Kevin Love back and JR. Kyle Korver was hurt. He's coming back soon. They've got Darren Williams. They're looking good now that they're getting their team chemistry back together. And I think they're going to hang on in the East for sure. And it looks like, they could. I think they're an automatic lock too for the finals. So I think we're going to see part 3 of Warriors versus Cavs in the finals. And it's going to be a great matchup for sure, with the big 4 from the Warriors versus the big 3 from the Cavs. And I don't know how well the Cavs are going to match up with the Warriors. I mean, they did beat them once in Cleveland, but I don't see them winning 4 games out of 7. But then again, I can't bet against LeBron because he was down 3-1, and we were all like, well, the Warriors got him again, Steph got him again, and then Draymond got suspended. They got some momentum, and they just rolled. And for the record, if Draymond Green does not get suspended, and if Andrew Bogut doesn't get hurt in that series, the Warriors win that probably in 6. Maybe 5. So those 2 occurrences allowed LeBron to gain that momentum and then win the series from there. But I think the biggest threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers in the East is not the Boston Celtics. I think it's the Washington Wizards because John Wall has had a phenomenal year. Bradley Beal is shooting the ball lights out this year. And they have a tremendous bench, great depth. They play well together. I believe they've beaten the Cavs this year. They did lose a close one to them in Washington. But yeah, I think they're the biggest threat to the Cavs in the East. But I think the Cavs are a for sure lock for the finals, and we're going to see part 3 of Warriors versus Cavs again. So, all right, we're going to talk about Kevin Durant and the Warriors now. Kevin Durant is set to return. The Warriors are saying before the regular season ends. That'll be great for them, and that will set them up for the playoffs and for the finals. But the big thing I want to touch on here, not necessarily touch on, I really want to nail this, is that the Warriors' worst decision was signing Kevin Durant. They should never have signed Kevin Durant. And here's why. Signing Kevin Durant takes a lot of cap space. And to sign him, you had to move some pieces and clear some cap. In doing so, they traded Andrew Bogut, tremendous rim protector, one of the best rim protectors in the league, underrated, but one of the best. They had to get rid of Leandro Barbosa. And really, their bench was just destroyed, and they destroyed that chemistry. Because now with him hurt, you have nothing. It's just now Steph, Clay, and Draymond. And then you have Iggy, and you got to play Iggy more. You got to play Sean Livingston more. But their bench is just nowhere near as strong as it used to be. That chemistry is not there, that camaraderie. That's why Steph was having such a hard time getting it going again, because you're used to relying on Kevin Durant. To me, that was the worst thing the Warriors could have done. Kevin Durant would have been a much better fit staying in OKC or going to Boston. Because if he goes to Boston, they're automatically the biggest threat to Cleveland and might even make it to the finals. But Durant made the right choice going to the Warriors, with their style of play. But for the Warriors to even go after them, to even want to think about breaking up that team chemistry is just, it just blows my mind that you would want to blow up something so great. You had a 73-9 year, and you came up just short in the finals. Why would you want to blow up your team just to get probably the second best player in the world? Maybe third. He's a top 3 player in the world. Why would you want to blow up your team just to have the second best player in the world to rely on? It just wasn't smart. And I think looking back on it, the Warriors regret signing Kevin Durant. I think without Kevin Durant, the Warriors are just fine this year. Going to coast to the first seed. They'll coast to the finals, and they might win. But now, with Durant, him out, you're fighting to keep that first seed. And, it's just a disaster for them. It's not a disaster, but because they're still a great team. But it could have been even better without him. Because you would have had so many other guys that when you put in your second team, you're good. I mean, Steph Curry and Clay hardly played in the fourth quarters last year. They hardly played because they didn't need to, because they would just run the score up early. And, by the end of the third quarter, the game's over. You're up 25, 30 points on teams. I mean, they went 73-9 for a reason. They were a tremendous team. And then to ruin it by getting the big fish and Kevin Durant, it's horrible. It just blows my mind. Because at first, I'm thinking, they're an automatic lock for the finals. And they are with Kevin Durant. But then when you get hurt and you realize that there's no bench to plug in, it means you have to play Steph and Clay more, wear them out a little more. It gets a little interesting, gets a little sticky in there. It's a sticky situation. So to me, Kevin Durant signing with the Warriors was the worst decision ever made by the Warriors front office. It was just horrible. But now we're going to move on. We're going to move on now to, this is a big discussion being talked about in the NBA, is sitting out. Players, like big name players, resting. And to me, I don't have a problem with NBA players sitting out, with superstars sitting out. They deserve to sit out every now and then. It's a long season, 82 games. You have back-to-backs. You have 3 games in 4 nights. Those are ridiculous schedules. The scheduling is a problem in the NBA, and I think Adam Silver needs to fix that and space the season out. Space it out even more, space the games out, and only have a couple back-to-backs. It allows for more players to rest in between games. That way they don't have to sit out so many games. My main issue with players sitting out is the fans. The fans pay money to go see the best players in the world play. And when you show up to the game and you find out that LeBron James isn't playing, Steph Curry's not playing, when you find out the big names aren't playing, you feel like you wasted your money, and you did, because you're not seeing the best. You're seeing second team versus second team, or whatever the case may be. Like with the Warriors and the Spurs, it was supposed to be a primetime game on TV. Steph, Clay, and Draymond and Andre Iguodala didn't even play. They needed rest because it was their third game in 4 nights. And with the Spurs, Kawhi Leonard sat out. LaMarcus Aldridge he had the heartbeat issue. I don't have a problem with him sitting out. Injury, I have no issue with injury, obviously. Don't get me wrong. Don't take me the wrong way. But just sitting out, it takes away from the fan experience. It's a waste of money. And I heard that a family from Mexico went to that game in San Antonio to go watch. They were a fan of the Warriors. They get there, and they find out that the big four aren't playing. Well, I mean, Durant was already out, but Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Andre Iguodala aren't playing. So it's second team versus the second team of the Spurs. That's just horrible. And to me, if I'm the NBA, obviously this is horrible for business. Because then nobody's going to watch if nobody's playing. But I would give refunds back to the people that showed up. I mean, because it's absolutely ridiculous. You're paying hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars to watch the game, to watch an entertaining game with the best players in the world. And you don't even get to see them. You get to see all the second team guys. It's just... I hate that. Sit out every now and then. And if you're going to sit out home games. If you're LeBron James, sit out on a home game. Because fans can still come see you every other home game you play. But when you sit out at an away game, fans travel from across the country, no, the world, to come watch you play. And when you sit out in an away game, like that's just a waste of time. It's a waste of money. It's just, to me, that's bad for the NBA. And I think Adam Silver needs to take it upon himself to change the scheduling to make sure NBA players aren't sitting out so much. And it's their right to sit out, but just for the good of the league, you need to change the scheduling and spread it out. If that means you play until July, do it. I think that's what's best for the league, to make sure these players are playing, fans are enjoying the NBA, you're not losing money, and everyone's happy. It's just crazy. Sorry, I was breathing in my mic there. Sorry. All right, let's move on now to March Madness. That's been, the big thing over the last week. No, first round, wasn't really anything splashy. Middle Tennessee beat Minnesota, but I think a lot of people expected that. There wasn't really anything, that was really surprising. Xavier beat Maryland, but I wasn't surprised by that. They beat FSU. I was a little surprised by that, but that's second round stuff. First round, not a lot of madness. I was dead wrong, absolutely dead wrong about my Cinderella picks. Marquette, I thought, with their shooting, I thought they could compete with anyone, but they were handled with ease by South Carolina. Miami got beat by Michigan State. That was a close game, but they got beat. I had them, remember from my last show, I had them in the Final Four because, with that elite defense and, a decent offense, I thought that they could stop anyone. I thought they could beat Kansas and get into the Final Four, but I was dead wrong about that. And then Villanova in the second round got beat by Wisconsin. So, yeah, two of my Final Four picks, were out in the first two rounds. But in the second round, though, we already talked about Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a great team. Nigel Hayes is an outstanding player. And, they beat a Nova team that's pretty darn good. And they wanted it more than them, South Carolina beat Duke. That was a huge surprise to me. They played tremendous defense on Duke, and Duke could never really get anything. I mean, they had a lead at halftime, and they were leading in the second half, but to me, they just seemed very rattled. That press by South Carolina was it just kept them on their toes, and, once they got that lead, the pressure was on Duke, and, they could just never get that lead back. And then Michigan beat Louisville. I was kind of surprised by that, but also not a little bit because I had Michigan winning in my brackets. But, I don't really care about my brackets anymore because they were screwed first day anyways. as were everyone else's. So, yeah. But Michigan has been one of the hottest teams in the country right now. In the Big Ten tournament, they surprised everyone by winning the Big Ten tourney, and they've been absolutely hot right now, beating Oklahoma State and then beating Louisville. I think they have a great chance to beat Oregon and make it to the. They could even make it. They could make it to the Elite Eight, and then I think they'll get beat by Kansas. Because Kansas is just a better team. But that would be a tremendous run by Michigan to make it to the Elite Eight. It'd be phenomenal. So I'm not really super surprised by them, but I'm more so surprised with South Carolina and Wisconsin. And one of my friends the other day actually called out Wisconsin. Well, not the other day, but like he rubbed it in our faces the other day. But when we were filling out brackets, he said Wisconsin was going to beat Nova. And, everyone was like, oh, no way. Nova's Final Four. And, he was dead right. Wisconsin, has a great shot now to make it to the Final Four. They got to get through Florida, and then they got to get through either South Carolina or Baylor. But they have a much easier path now with no Duke and no Nova. So props to my man Trey for calling that out. But he did miss on Duke, and I think Duke killed a lot of people because Duke was the third most picked champion. I believe it was 5%. I'm not even gonna say the number. I'll probably be wrong. But third most picked champion, and them losing really just killed everyone's brackets. But there's only 2 brackets left out of the 18 million that were filled out that they're not perfect. They both lost, I think, 1 or 2 games in the first round, but they both picked the Sweet 16. So that's great for them, but no $1 million for a perfect bracket. But now I'm going to move on to my new Final Four predictions. Probably still going to be completely dead wrong about this. I'm probably going to miss on 2 of them. But I think Florida will get past South Carolina in the Elite Eight. So I think South Carolina is going to beat Baylor, and Baylor is a great team. But I think South Carolina will get by Baylor, and then Florida will get by Wisconsin and beat South Carolina, get to the Final Four. They're going to play Gonzaga, so I'm still holding true on Gonzaga. And then I think Kansas makes it to the Final Four. They're going to beat Michigan to get in. And then UCLA, I believe I had Kentucky the first time. I'm not quite sure if I had Kentucky or not. No, I had North Carolina. Sorry. I'm going to change it. I'm going to change this to UCLA. I really like the way UCLA is playing. Their offense is great. Lonzo is a tremendous player. But I'm going to change it to UCLA. I just have a gut feeling. I'm probably completely wrong. Who knows anymore? It's March Madness, Probably going to be wrong. But anyways, so I have Florida, Gonzaga, Kansas, and UCLA. And then I have Gonzaga versus UCLA in the championship game. And I think Gonzaga is going to prove all the doubters wrong and beat UCLA. I don't have a score, but if I threw one out there, I'll say 71-63. I'll say Gonzaga will beat UCLA 71-63, and they're going to prove all the doubters wrong. And Lonzo Ball is going to have a tremendous tourney and become the number 1 pick in the draft. So that's all I got for today's show. Give me a like and subscribe. Leave any comments if you want and ask me questions. I'll answer questions, whatever. And, that's all I got for this week. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and tune in next week, people. All right. See ya.